For more than 32 years, Ireland's most frustrating cold case sat unsolved. Then, in mid June 2025, a dramatic twist hit. The man once thought cleared has now lied about his alibi, and yet he walks free. Picture this: a New Yorker vanishes in Dublin on March 26, 1993. Annie McCarrick, aged 26, disappears. Decades pass, leads dry. Then, after more than 3 decades, Gardaí arrest a 62-year-old man, someone Annie knew, someone whose story finally cracks, but he's still released without charge. What's the contradiction? He lied. His hotel alibi that shielded him collapsed under Garda scrutiny. He's still free, not detained, not charged, not silenced. But the case is heating up. The investigation has fully pivoted, digging deeper on every front. If he lied about where he was that night, and Gardaí now know it, why isn't he in custody? That hush, that unanswered question, that's where we start digging. He's far from a random person on the radar. He's a 62-year-old businessman, originally from Dublin, but now living in Co. Meath, who knew Annie back in the late 1980s and early 90s. Friends of Annie expressed concern at the time, even warning Gardaí that he had pressured and struck her when he'd been drinking, yet those warnings went nowhere in the original investigation. Fast forward to 12 June 2025, Gardaí moved in. They arrested him under Section 4, searching not just his Meath home, but also a property in Clondalkin tied to his family. There, they brought in cadaver dogs and excavation tools. From his Meath house, they seized old phones and laptops, hunting for digital breadcrumbs or contradictions in his stories. This is no stranger. He was once in Annie's circle. And now, with every device analyzed, every witness re-questioned, and excavation underway, the man who was admired or dismissed as a friend is watching every step. He's in their sights, and every detail he shared is now suspect. For more than 32 years, he claimed to be in a Dublin hotel on the night Annie disappeared. His alibi was untouchable. But at the end of June 2025, Gardaí quietly withdrew that hotel alibi. It wasn't a casual doubt, it was dismantled and discarded. Almost immediately, the investigation pivoted into overdrive. A Clondalkin property tied to the suspect's family became ground zero. Diggers, jackhammers, skips, and even a cadaver dog have been deployed to scour every inch of the site. They suspect something crucial could be buried beneath the layers of time. At the same time, Gardaí seized old phones, laptops, and devices from his County Meath home. Using modern forensic tools, they're searching for messages, metadata, location pins, anything that confirms or contradicts his timeline. This dual offensive, forensic excavation and digital dissection, marks the moment the case shifted from cold files to boiling point. When an alibi is exposed and the search begins in earnest, the investigation changes shape, and now every ounce of evidence they uncover could redefine what comes next. He lied about his alibi. His story collapsed, and yet, after a day of questioning, he walked away without charges. Sounds absurd, right? But here's how Irish law works. Gardaí can only hold a suspect for 24 hours under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act. After that deadline, they face a hard choice: charge him or let him go. In this case, they released him not because they believed him, but because they didn't have enough to secure a conviction. See, without a body, murder weapon, or eyewitness, the case remains entirely circumstantial. Lying alone won't stick in court. Gardaí aren't hunting for a quick arrest. They're building a rock-solid case. So they released him, but that doesn't mean he's safe. His devices are being combed for incriminating digital trails. Witnesses are being re-interviewed, and the Clondalkin dig continues. He's free for now, but the legal chess match is far from over. If they find what they're looking for, this story changes overnight. At the heart of this investigation lies a house on Monastery Walk in Clondalkin, a property once linked to the suspect's family. After his alibi collapsed, Gardaí secured a warrant and brought in cadaver dogs, skips, a digger, Kango hammers, consaws, even heavy-duty forensic tools. They're tearing through every inch of the site front garden, backyard, built structures looking for anything tied to Annie. This isn't a token gesture. It's a full-blown excavation. Dogs trained in Northern Ireland sniffing for human remains, excavation teams digging meticulously, forensic units scouring soil, fibers, and any trace of her presence or last moments. They're hunting for bones, clothing fibers, anything that once belonged to her. Why is this so pivotal? Because without a body or remains, the case rests on shaky ground. If Gardaí uncover her remains or items with her DNA, this investigation shifts from suspicion to solid evidence. It becomes a body-led murder case and everything changes. Formal charges, prosecution, courtroom drama, it all becomes possible. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the next few days could rewrite this decades-long story. He's free, but he's not safe. Gardaí are watching everything. Since his release, the investigation has shifted behind the curtain. No press conferences, no dramatic headlines, just quiet, deliberate steps to seal every crack in the story. First, Gardaí are re-interviewing old witnesses, people who knew him in the early 90s, friends of Annie, co-workers, neighbors. Anyone who might remember a strange comment, a suspicious timeline, or behavior that didn't sit right. They're not just looking for memories, they're hunting for patterns. Second, his digital devices are under forensic examination. Phones, laptops, drives, even deleted messages and old file traces can resurface. They're looking for anything, a message, a photo, a location ping that places him near Annie or contradicts his past claims. Third, they're using technology that didn't exist back then. Advanced DNA testing, AI-powered CCTV analysis, geolocation reconstruction, all of it aimed at building a trail he thought was lost to time. This isn't noise, it's strategy. Every quiet move Gardaí make now is part of a larger picture, one that could lead to a courtroom or to more silence. But for the suspect, silence doesn't mean freedom. It means they're getting closer. If his alibi was fake, then where was he the night Annie disappeared? Here's what pieces fit together so far. He knew Annie, she even confided in friends that he'd pressured her and once gotten violent when drunk. Witnesses said he was obsessed and had a public row at a wedding shortly after her disappearance. Was that a sign of guilt or anger that went unchecked? We know Annie bought groceries on the morning of March 26, 1993, and left them unpacked in her flat, a sign she intended to return. She didn't. For decades, eyewitness claims put her on a bus to Enniscorthy, but Gardaí now believe she never left Sandymount. Those sightings were likely false trails. Instead, detectives think she encountered someone she did know, possibly this businessman, or even one of the two brothers also under review. The theory going through the corridors now. They met, maybe plied with a dinner or drinks. Tensions rose. Something happened. He panicked, lied about his alibi, and somehow disposed of her body. Annie was never found, meaning the crime scene remained hidden. This is speculation, but it's based on new witness interviews, his collapsed hotel alibi, excavation in Clondalkin closely tied to his family, and digital clues. It all points to a relationship that ended in tragedy and a man who might have chosen panic over confession. It's not confirmed, but it is real, connected, and built on evidence. And it's the lead thread Gardaí are now untangling, one they hope leads to justice. He's not off the hook. The story is moving fast. In the coming weeks, a few key developments could change everything. The Clondalkin dig will finish. If they uncover remains, clothing fragments, or personal items, the discovery becomes the linchpin the case needs. Results from the digital forensic analysis will arrive. GPS logs, deleted messages, location tags, anything that places him at relevant times or reveals suspicious communication could tip the scale. Based on these discoveries, Gardaí will need to decide: rearrest him for murder or serious assault, or continue watching and investigating quietly. Media and public attention are also intensifying. Families, local communities, and digital tribes are pushing for answers, and that pressure adds urgency to Gardaí's timeline. But remember, Gardaí aren't playing to the headlines. They're building a case that can stand in court. They need solid evidence: body, digital trail, witness statements. If any of these fall into place, expect charges within days. If not, they'll keep the case alive, re-interviewing, re-examining, but holding off on formal action. The next phase could bring dramatic revelations or another quiet pause in a case stretching back to 1993. For now, the world's watching, and the man once believed cleared isn't cleared after all. Old leads are new again, and mistakes made in 1993 are finally being corrected. Now, Gardaí are untangling decades-old threads once dismissed or overlooked. They're re-interviewing former colleagues and friends of the suspect, hoping that with fresh eyes and faded time, witnesses remember inconsistencies or tension around the time Annie vanished. They've revisited early sightings, the ones in Enniscorthy and Glencullen, that steered the investigation away to confirm they were false leads. It now seems she likely never left Sandymount that afternoon. They're digging into questions Annie raised before she disappeared, confiding in friends about being assaulted or feeling unsafe. Those concerns, once minimized, are now being taken seriously. More obscure witnesses are coming forward, including a childhood friend interviewed in France and others overseas who knew Annie and the suspect back in the day. They've also re-examined theories about a possible serial killer or political figure, but narrowed their focus back to someone she knew and to the man whose alibi finally cracked. This isn't just cleaning up old evidence. It's rewriting the entire timeline from March 26, 1993 to today, so that every memory, every location, and every person is accounted for. The case is gaining clarity, and slowly, layer by layer, the picture is sharpening. It took 32 years to expose one man's lie. How much longer until Annie's voice is finally heard completely? Think about it. 3 decades of silence. 3 decades of unanswered questions for Annie's family. It wasn't until a collapsed hotel alibi, a cadaver dog-led dig, and digital footprints resurrected by modern tech that Gardaí truly zeroed in on a suspect who walks free but isn't free. Here's what matters most. This isn't closure, not yet, but the investigation is alive and moving at a speed it hasn't since 1993. A man once considered innocent now can't walk away from the pieces he left: scattered lies, digital data, and the earth of Clondalkin under forensic scrutiny. For Annie's family, justice has been elusive. Now, with new strategies in play, new evidence emerging, and renewed focus on old mistakes, closure feels closer, not just possible. So we leave you with this. Do you believe he did it? And if he did, will Gardaí have enough to make a murder charge stick before time runs out again? Drop your thoughts below. Subscribe for ongoing updates, because this case is far from over and every clue, every viewer, every comment could matter. Stay sharp, stay empathetic, and above all, stay vigilant.